if it can make people feel, is that right? If it can make people feel less alone with their stuff through it. You know, if there's only one post where it's like, somebody texts me later, dude, I can so relate. I'm like, yes, this is why I want to do it. It's just so, yeah. Also, I reconnected with a friend who, when I met her, she was like totally normal, like this cool chick that's just traveling around. And when we reconnected, she was going through depression, lost her boyfriend, you know, like these things. And she was so real about it, you know. And I could so relate with so many things that she said about not being able to get up, having all these mood swings, like not really seeing any like purpose in life anymore. And that's just how everybody doesn't understand, and how there's so much pressure on like proceeding in life and like what to do. And yeah, and I felt, wow, it's so brave of her to like just talk about this. And I wish more people would tell me how they feel really on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's kind of the reason behind it.
I mean, and it did work, you know, when you were talking about how you feel about not having a job right now, and just in general, just watching how the other day, I think it was a month ago, yeah, you posted that you were starting this new job, and then a week later you were fired. And just being open about it is something I really admire, really, because I think it's so hard for people to admit when things aren't perfect, you know. And that's just, especially on social media, where there is this place where everything is supposed to be all shiny and pretty. And, you know, with you, yeah, you don't put your photo up there, you just have this really nice color scheme, like for every photo. I really, really like that. And I think it's also, you know, beautiful that we're able to reconnect based on that. I think knowing that we're not alone, and that we're our own people, of course, but that we can all connect in that way, I think that's something that's invaluable and so cool to
I don't know what that was. Something exploded.
I also think it's cool that, you know, we're literally on opposite ends of the world, and still we're going through something very similar. So
yeah, and it's always the kimchi that exploded.
the kimchi.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, I love, and that's kind of what I mean when those are the moments where I feel like understood and seen. And like, wait, there are people, you know, my age and thing, and just because we studied and because we have it all and we have all the best, like, how can I put it? We would have like a perfect start for life. And I feel like, oh my God, I had, you know, I grew up in the right country. I like had some education. I have somewhat good relationships with my mother and father. Like I'm supported, you know, and I failed to get a job when I want to start my career. And I'm like, I feel like a fucking failure. And it does help so much to like know that other people my age also go through these things and be like, look, I'm not, you know, I haven't figured it out either. Like, you know, like makes you feel a bit less of a failure, I guess, just because it's shared experience. I mean, there are these people that just seem to have this perfect life. And you know, when you said, oh, you had your first job literally a week after graduation, I mean, that also seemed like this perfect, you just have it all together and you just jump and you're like, you know. And I'm like, oh, I'm off to, I don't know, I fucking went to Norway for a month because I didn't want to face reality, and then like back home and I like did all these hostess jobs and figured it's really hard to make money of that, and then went with 2,000 euros to Australia, and like, and now here, like, it's so easy to like judge somebody else's life and be like, this person has it all together. And like conversations like this just make it a bit more realistic and a bit more down to earth. And I feel like we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves if society, if it was more outspoken, if it was more talked about and less stigmatized, and more like, look, it's fine if you have a year or two within your 20s, or even I don't know, maybe even every year, it's fine. Like, you know, you be nice to other, like be kind. You've been a kind person this year, like achieved, you know, I don't know, you haven't polluted the environment too much. Done. permission granted to exist. Like, I don't know. Things like this.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why I think I was really watching my ex-partner struggle with that a lot. Sometimes, even now, we have this issue where he calls me and says, "Can you please remind me that the lives of people on Instagram are fake? Why do they have these good lives, and why is she in Shanghai right now, and why is he in Brazil right now, and why am I not?" And then I literally, at the time, had to go through the profiles, be like, "Hey, so this says throwback, so this means that this is not happening right now." He's like, "Oh, okay." And then the other one is like, I was like, "This is not real." But that would make me spiral as well, obviously, because you have to go through this whole lengthy process of reminding yourself that you're basically not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's just super fucking hard. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that me after uni, like a week after uni, I already had a job. It was terrifying. I was the youngest person at the company I was working at, and so it felt like I constantly had to prove myself to everyone, and I just missed. I don't like to say that I missed out on so many things, but I totally fucking did. Sure, I had a salary. That was so fun, but so many things didn't go well during that time. And it was so much responsibility that I put on myself because I was like, I'm a member of society now because I have a job, which means I need to do that. I need to wear more pantsuits. I wouldn't say I wish I could turn back time because my dad is a historian, and all historians say never say what if. So I don't want to do that, but it's definitely like, okay, yeah, now I'm 23. I'm actually turning 24 tomorrow. I'm getting closer to 25, and
Right?
my life.
And then, yeah, and you're like, with 18, you can literally do anything, and people are like, you're 18, what do you want? With like 20, they're still a bit like this. 21, they're still like, you're 21, what do you want? But like 24, 20, 25 is like, so where's your life heading? It's like, what's up with you?
Like 25 is when my mom had her first child, and I'm just like, yeah, so I thought I was gonna marry the love of my life, turns out which is absolutely fine. Like, I'm totally fine with that, but this whole comparing game is really hard because you compare yourself with people who, like, are married, have kids, whatever, and do you want to be the person who compares themselves with someone who doesn't have that, and they go, oh, but they're much worse off than me? That's also terrible to do. I don't know.
I do notice that a lot with like work stuff where I'm like, why did I study something so generic? I feel like I can literally could have not studied at all these people that just like started a job, they already worked 5 years now or 4 years now, look, 4 years in their CV, people would want to hire them, like it kind of goes in that direction, like comparison wise. Yeah, it's not great. It's really not great, but
I have 2.5 years of work experience, and people don't take that seriously at all, where they're just
really?
like, yeah, because they don't know that I started as a fucking intern and like moved my way up to product marketing manager, but I also don't want to be that person who's like, yeah, so just so you know, I was working like 60 hours a week, because it's funny how some people who don't have any work experience at all, they just get into their first job and it's like this high ranking, well paid position, and then other people who do have work experience, it just takes them forever to get there. I think it's all timing and just how life works. And I mean, when I looked at the photos from when Annemarie was in Australia, everything was so pretty, and I know for a fact that people who see those photos, who see that you're in Australia, they're like, why is she in Australia and I'm not? It's this whole game of like the grass is always greener.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing actually about the Australia, like a friend of mine who for some reason never really reaches out, but anyway, she's like, For some reason, I just thought, in Australia, you're fine. Like, they make that connection of like, you're abroad, it must be you living your life the fullest, which is something I probably thought of myself as well. Like, I'll be in Australia, I'll be fine. But really, it's just normal life, no matter where you are. Like, as soon as traveling has its own, up and downs and struggles. But as soon as you just settle somewhere, you just settle somewhere. There's no escaping from anything, really.
You can travel and you can do all these things, but at some point, the human is just made, the human being is just made to settle wherever they are. That can be for a week, that can be for a month, that can be for a year. And in your case, you met someone. And I mean, I wouldn't say that was the only factor why you stayed in Australia, or was it?
I think it was. I came back, I saw there was literally nothing left from all the memories and places. And I realized, look, you either find a job and try to build a life, or you go back home. And I wasn't ready. So I say half, like part of me wasn't ready to give up on that illusion of what I wanted to recreate and be like, no, give me 3 more months. Maybe I'll make it. So part of me wasn't ready to go back home. And that's why it was really handy that I met him, to have this excuse to not go back home, right? And a huge part of me is also very aware that I wouldn't have had the guts to stay on my own and try to make it work. You know what I mean? So in that case, it is him that like keeps me here, because otherwise I would probably just be like, call it a day and be like, okay, I tried it. I had my, fair share. I do think I was running to some degree, actually. It was really much, it's like this constant, you want to have a constant high,
Yeah.
like I had so many, like there were episodes like in Stockholm, and I was like, oh, I have so many guys and so much is happening at this community, blah, blah. This is life, And then 2 months later, I'm like in Italy for 2 months and nothing happens. I feel isolated as shit. And I'm like, this is shit, and you keep jumping from one experience to the next. And it's almost like random community and love. And that's amazing and interesting and intense. And then the next thing is like a dry season kind of thing. It's like nothing happens. And so I did run. I just wanted to have one after the other. I want to have a constant high, Turns out, my therapist said today, intensity is not intimacy. You got to know that. And I think I did mistake those two things, which like, I think quite often, and might actually be that the whole Australian experience that's so crazy ingrained in my brain is because it was intense, not because it was the real life or even the most healthy life or my true authentic self. It was maybe just a lot of stimulus at once.
Yeah.
My brain was like, junkie, this is what we got to recreate. Like, it's so hard to be here, just not be able to jump and not be able to distract yourself, and just have to sit it out. But that's kind of like my journey now, and I feel like that's much more healthy or healthier or whatever, like what I've been doing than what I've been doing before,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of okay with it on some days.
I'm glad, because the running part is really fun, but it's not fun. Intense is really a good word, I think, really, because, after my breakup, I was like constantly just like texting people, trying to see people, creating, to be honest, the most exciting, there's this one really exciting memory for me, and some other great things that just happened. But then I got so tired. And I remember telling my therapist about this one encounter where an encounter that wasn't great. And that's when I realized I've been pushing myself so hard just to feel a certain way, but there's nothing left, so you have this, as you said, like this moment.
Yeah.
But then
100%.
you're left with absolutely nothing afterwards. And that is so draining and so tiring. And you're just, the next encounter has to be even bigger, right? Even more intense, so that you never forget that. But yeah, it's not really great.
Wow. No, That makes so much sense. The intensity, yeah. It's almost like what if you were addicted and you take some drugs and you have that high and you have. I felt like after Australia, like coming back to Austria, I literally felt depressed for months until uni started again. And then the same thing a year later, because like I had the same cycle of like traveling and then coming back, and not, you know, you have this couple of months where nothing happens and you could. But I think especially what you said, if you push yourself so hard to feel the same way, yeah, I can relate to that a lot. It's like you're like, oh, but I know I just need X, Y, Z, like almost like a recipe. I just need to, you know, go out clubbing, or I don't know, like in my case, I'm like, I need to find this outdoorsy community, you know, or, you know, like all these things, I need to get lean or do this or do that. Like I need to feel the sun on my skin all the time. I need to go for like a 4 a.m. surf session, like these kind of things to feel myself. But you're not really doing it anyways. Like I find myself so often, like I dream, I have all these ideals in my head. I don't do any of them. I don't act on them. I'm living a very modest life in terms of achievements, you know, on a daily basis. But I find that maybe that is the, like, more happiness lies in that more like stable. But it's still, I'm still not 100%, like, to be really honest, I'm still not 100% like okay to just like go and know that I won't be feeling like this again.
I think it's about, in that case, then finding the balance, you know, because I keep thinking to myself, if I just had that one big experience I had and then just taken a break, that would have been so great, if that makes sense. I pushed myself, now stop. But I don't know. I think, you know, I found a high in moving again for the 100th time and being with people who are really lovely. And of course, the routine gets boring, and you know, it's not always easy. This morning I woke up and I wasn't 100% happy, and I was like, crap, I guess I'm losing it already. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think something that we often do as people is like we try to retain the happy things that happen, like, oh, something happy happened, snapshot. And then when something bad happens, it feels like ages, like something that isn't 100% positive. It's so much more there. And I think finding just, or trying to at least find the good in that would be so great. Like you saying that you live this modest life on a daily basis, or I mean, I looked up to you a lot during uni, especially. I mean, you got to Australia on that scholarship. You did amazing. You had that drive. I would always tell Anna-Marie when I was asking how you're doing, she was always saying, oh yeah, so she's working at this event and she's doing that and she's really saving up. I'm like, that is so, like, that is something I've always admired about you, is that you always find a way to get things done. And that's really important, that you know that people think that, and that you know that, like, I mean, it's not important, but I think, yeah, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself, but who am I to tell you that?
It's also like, yes, we're hard on ourselves, but I think we're also in a process of like understanding that and being less hard, right? Like, yeah, I think that's really my focus right now, is kind of like, I know everybody talks about like positive self-talk and stuff, or negative self-talk, and I was always like, yeah, sure. But in my mind, I literally never really considered not beating myself up for stuff, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
It's so natural, like the sort of spiral, like whatever, like something happened and I'm like, oh, you idiot, you shouldn't have hugged him. Of course, he said no, social distancing. Why? What are you? You know, like all these things, it just happens. There is no such thing that's like, wait a second, you're just a human, you made a mistake, doesn't actually matter, he can go fuck himself, whatever, you know, like just kind things. Or like, okay, you wake up, you feel like shit, that's fine, you can feel like shit, babe, you know, like be nice to yourself. It just doesn't occur to me naturally, but I'm on it. I'm like, maybe there is this weird reality to talk about when you're being kind to yourself, you know, like maybe it is. I always felt like I can't be kind to myself because otherwise I will like land on the street and I'll just don't accomplish anything, you know. But I'll give it a try. I really want to give it a try because it's fucking mental what we do to ourselves.
Just punishing ourselves with behaviors, that's definitely something I noticed through therapy. I would always beat myself up for, like, also the way I would talk about my body. Like if I had tummy aches during therapy, I'd be, oh God, my tummy is being such an asshole again. And he's like, why are you talking to your body like that? Like, why would you say these things? I'm like, yeah, because it's not listening to me. And then, you know, my therapist was like, maybe you're not listening to yourself. Maybe you're a stupid therapist. But like,
That's always an option. So hard to find a good one.
no,
So
I
hard.
love my therapist. My therapist, oh my God,
Yeah.
he's just really so lovely. And so, yeah, I think everyone should go to therapy to begin with. But also
Yeah.
finding a good therapist, I've definitely heard the struggle from other people. I got my therapist through friends who, long story. But yeah, it was definitely difficult in the beginning. I would fight with him a lot. I even wrote him a letter like about all the reasons why I hate him in the very beginning.
Oh.
And that was so emotional. And ever since, it's just been the best thing ever. But every time I would get like my notebook out, he's like, what, do you have another letter for me? I'm like, no, I'm so sorry. But is your therapist in Australia or?
Yeah, just found out that Medicare, which is like a Sozialversicherung here, gives, like, if you go to a GP and basically tell them you're depressed and anxious, they're gonna make, it was so funny, they give you like a piece of paper with a questionnaire, and you need to, it's like, how often do you feel worthless, how often do you, like, are you anxious, nervous, whatever, these things, and then you rate yourself from 1 to 5, and the total score needs to be higher than 30 or something, and then you get to go to a therapist. I was like, I can't fucking believe this. It's insane. But anyways, I definitely hit the score hard. and that's how so then they refer you to your therapist. And I'm so blessed because I'm unemployed. She does it bulk billed, which means the government pays for it basically for the first 6 sessions or 10 sessions. So yeah, and we're doing it online. And she's also like a coach. So she's very, like, she interrupts me a lot. It's like, okay, hold you there, like, you just said something, blah blah. So I feel sometimes like I just can't talk as much as I want and just like elaborate on my feelings, but I probably give myself away really quickly for somebody that's like educated and, like, you know, you can listen to a couple of sentences, you're like, oh wait, that's the problem. I don't like that though, being like interrupted in your thoughts, because you always feel like you're doing something wrong. Like I literally feel like I'm failing therapy. Like I'm a loser at being vulnerable and talking about my shit. Like, can you believe it? So that's quite interesting to feel that need of pleasing every single person you meet. And I'm so aware of it. I'm like, oh my God, my therapist doesn't like me. She thinks I'm stupid. But it doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. Like, we're here, this is an like, we're here so I can talk, you're being paid for it, full stop. Like, you don't have to like me. At best, you give good advice. At worst, nothing's gonna happen. Okay, at worst, actually, they can damage you more, but let's not go to that sense, you know, like, let's not go there. So I feel like I'm getting better with it. I'm more aware of how I'm just directly sliding into that dynamic of like people pleasing and overthinking of what other people think and why they don't like me, and then trying so hard that they like me and feeling more pathetic and like saying suddenly all the wrong things. But it's really time for this to end, you know, like, it's just been too long. You see these people that have their boundaries straight, and you see these people that are like confident enough to just say it as it is, and you're like, hell yeah, I admire that so much. Yeah. So that's the process I'm kind of trying right now. I'm definitely not 100%. I'm more like watching myself doing it again, like the negative talk and thing. But it's like, okay, I'll watch myself, and next time maybe I can change like a slight, like one sentence in my head, you know, and then maybe next time 2 sentences. And at some stage I might be like really nice to myself, because I think that's fucking what we deserve, you know, and that might make all the difference.
For sure. And I also think that writing is a great way to catch yourself in those thoughts and in those, yeah, just in those patterns. And I mean, I totally agree with that, with the maybe next time I'll try this other sentence. I catch myself talking a lot to myself these days. When I see myself doing that, I sit with myself. I'm like, didn't need to say that. Next time you can say that. But then, you know, I also catch myself talking to myself. So it's a little bit creepy because what are you doing?
No. I think talking to yourself is very natural, isn't it?
Yeah. My sister is just, Alix, the other day, she was like, do you talk to yourself a lot? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, yeah, I think you do. It's weird. And then I was like, okay, why don't you give it a try? She's like, that's for weird people. And I'm like, okay. On some days, it's just easier to be nice to yourself, and on others, it's less. And that is also something to be okay with. Um, I understand where you're coming from when you're saying, you know, if I'm too kind to myself, I'll end up on the street. But knowing you, like me, knowing you, that will never happen. You're too smart to do that. And you're too driven as well. So these days where nothing is happening for me, all I think to myself is, yeah, but when it gets real rough, I'll know. And we haven't hit rock bottom yet. We have roofs over our heads and yeah, Wi-Fi.
Fuck yes. I know. It's crazy how important that became.
Yeah.
How quickly it became so important. How it's like, yeah, it's insane. But we have it, and that's fine. And also, that's another thing. I'm like so concerned about when is my savings going to run out, right? When I'm not going to have enough money for anything. But I'm like, every day I think about these things. I'm like, also, reality check right now. I have food and a roof and I paid my rent. And then the next day I'm again like afraid and I'm like, wait, but I still have those things. And it's weird how every single day you actually always have these things because we still didn't, as you said, we didn't hit rock bottom. We're not on the street. We haven't been. And so far, no matter how much anxiety we had, we still had every single day in the here now. I don't know, no great epiphany in here, but still, like, if you see like this, it's kind of like, wait, if I just go day by day, I might never end up like this.
Yeah, you've made it for a whole year in a really expensive place as well, might I add. You're about to move to another place, you know, where there's more space. That's really good. Last night I spent 20 minutes spiraling about food. I was just like, I have this in the fridge and that in the fridge, and this in the fridge, and oh, that's in the pantry. So technically that should last me, blah, blah, blah. But then I remembered, who cares? You know, like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be anytime soon that I'm starving because back to being privileged assholes, we are. So we're going to be just fine. And that's just something I think, yeah, to go day by day. And yeah, I let myself go through these 20 minutes. So because I knew at the end of that, there would be the conclusion of who gives a shit? You're absolutely fine. And that was the best feeling in the world. Yeah. I'm just annoying sometimes with myself, and that has to be okay as well. And if I worry, I let myself worry, but only for a certain amount of time. And think about other great things. Like, you know, I was super excited about talking to you today. Later on today, there's going to be the episode that I recorded with Annemarie that's coming out. That's a super exciting episode. I don't know how any of this is going to go, but that's okay.
I think this is so cool, seriously. So where do I find your podcast? On Spotify, right?
On Spotify, iTunes, everywhere where you listen to podcasts. And these episodes are going to be on YouTube, though, for obvious reasons, because the audio quality isn't good enough to put it on Spotify. I think people would scream, including me, because audio is like, you know.
I know. It's because we're not in the same, I get that. Well, whenever I'm back, we might do some real-time podcasting.
That would be so lovely. I really think that would be lovely. And, you know, I just can't stress enough how, like, I'm in awe of you. I always ask Annemarie how you're doing. Always. And at some point, like, when we have nothing to talk about, I'm like, okay, maybe next. You know, like, Because I don't want to be weird
So,
about it. I don't want to be like, yeah.
are
it's
you
a
my
nice house,
secret
Sarah.
stalker?
Yes, obviously.
Yes.
Your
Just that
door's open. Just I'm gonna come in.
Yeah, my door is open. We have so many cockroaches. And actually twice a man literally came in because he like just doesn't know where the real door is that he needs to go into.
If it helps, that's my associate. I send him to your place sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I knew you're gonna have somebody follow me and like pay for his accommodation and everything just to have somebody close to me to like report back on you. So yeah, I've seen that coming. So thank you, hon. That was so kind of you.
No, I
I
can't.
really laughed right now.
No, I can't even say anything. It's all true. No, but I just wasn't sure like how to reach out to you because yeah, I mean, there was a time where we were closer, and then it was just really hard because I think we're both people who really like connecting with the person in the same room, you know, and having this long conversation together and all that, and that just didn't come to fruition because you were busy and I was busy and the world is busy. I think you can definitely carve out time for people, but that's something I learned from Mathieu. I really choose who I am with. Like they're just, I'm going to try a couple of times. And if I see that it doesn't work, then, you know, my time's over basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, yeah, I think we were both in really weird places as well, which is not an excuse, but anyway, yeah, if you're back at some point, I'd love that. I think that would be really lovely. I loved everything about this conversation. I think, yeah.
I think I was always like, I always had that feeling like you're just different than most people. And sometimes it was overwhelming to me because I just didn't know how to interact, I guess. Because you always had this over the top or here, there, like so many thoughts at once. And I do think that you do function like a different level than most people, but that also gives you so much creative potential and you're like so freaking intellectual in so many ways. And yeah, I guess, you know, if you're like ever wondered like, oh, why is she not hanging out with me or something, just know that it's more like about me being intimidated than about you not being good enough or anything, you know. So it's very much, don't lose sleep over that when people are like weird towards you. I think every person is different and some people can handle it and some can't. And I appreciate you. And I love to see how you like find your passion and, you know, like so much shit has happened to you and you're still standing. Like tap yourself on the shoulder as well.
You should say that to yourself sometimes as well. That was a beautiful speech.
Thank
But
you.
I definitely feel the same way about you. Really, I do. So it's really interesting. This felt a lot like a reflection on both sides because I did feel a sense of like of being intimidated hanging out with you. I was always very like, what if I say something wrong? She's too cool to, you know, still continue engaging with me. And I've started like people have told me that I am intimidating, which is so surprising to me because
It's funny, right?
yeah, it's interesting in that way. So I think it's a lot of, you know, especially making the first step, coming up to a person saying, hi, this is me. Nice to meet you. I'm sure you'll get there as well with, you know, making friends and everything. Sometimes you just don't want to connect with other people because there's this barrier, because it's just hard. And no one should ever feel guilty about that because then you would be forcing friends. And I think that's not how friendships work, but I don't really know.
It's more like, you know, you're like, oh, I'm so lonely. Solution, go out and meet people so you eventually find somebody. And then that's the exact thing you don't do. So of course you're gonna beat yourself up for it.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Like it's like going to a new event, like going to this, going to that, and like trying to, and like kind of screening. It's almost like dating. You kind of screen every person. Is that person single? Is she interested in being a friend? You know what I mean? Like, would you have time for coffee? Would you have time for 2 coffees? Would she call me back? And most people don't. Most people like so nice and like, oh yeah, sure, let's do that. And then you text them and they fucking don't reply. And it's like, wow. you know.
But as you mentioned, it has nothing to do with you. It's just people being flaky.
Good one. You just put it right back to me. Oh my God. Damn, girl. We just leveled up.
So I think this was lovely. Thank you so much for joining me, especially because it's like 8 p.m. your time, right? Oh, it's lunchtime for me. So great. So say hi to your partner for me.
I will do.
This was really lovely. Again, thank you. And yeah, let's keep in touch. I will text you back if you text me.
Yeah, I'll text back for sure.
Amazing. Cool. So have a good evening and hopefully see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, and can you tell me when your Anne-Marie session is out as a podcast so I can listen to it?
Of course.
Awesome.
I will. Cool.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
This is not just a ukulele. This is a violin. Just without the violin stuff. But look. I mean, you're welcome.